Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to have a decorated 4-time war veteran and one of America's most successful spy catchers, Chris Simmons, on the Goldstein on Gelt show. Chris, a real honor to have you.
Thanks for the invitation.
So, Chris, I think you are one of the guys who has coined the phrase human chess. Now, as a spy, well, not that I'm a spy, but I'm very curious about your experiences, but I am very involved in the chess world, looking at it from the strategic angle. Tell us, what is human chess all about?
Essentially, human chess is my term for the game where everyone is already playing. It's the only game you can't quit, you can't tie, and you
Gelt?
really don't have a choice. It's the looking at human nature and the way we interact with others and understanding that it really is, in essence, human chess. Every move has a counter move, and everyone should be thinking strategically.
I'm really glad, Chris, you used the term human nature related to chess because some people think that chess is all about a specific series of tactics. You move, you move, you move, but there's so much psychology behind it. In fact, I remember when Bobby Fischer won the World Chess Champion in the 1970s, the Russians claimed that he used hypnosis in order to win. And quite frankly, I'm not sure that it's not completely untrue. So, what do you mean about understanding human nature in order to be a strategic thinker?
In understanding human nature, the first part is accepting that as humans, we are very predictable and we tend to over communicate everything that we've ever done. But our problem is we get so caught up in the day to day life, we don't take the time to watch how a person acts and listen to what they're saying and where they're coming from to put the context, I should say, into what they're trying to interact with us about right now.
So, when you say that people are overexpressing, what do you mean? They're telling more than we know?
Absolutely. The communication, I like to think of communication as a performance because it really is theater, and every message has three parts. There's a visual part, a verbal part, the words, and then a vocal. And so what you're looking for is all three to interact together. And if there's ever a disconnect in one part of the message, then you have a ethical issue with what's being conveyed.
I guess that's a nice way of saying someone is lying, but actually, I want to bring that over to the financial. I know what you're saying because you catch spies, but one of the things that I've often told people is that even though the world is so high tech, and frankly, I'm a big technology guy too, when I do financial planning for people, which is my day job, I always want to meet them. I want them to come into the office and I want to look at them and I want to talk to them. I don't think, a lot of people say, well, just give them a questionnaire to figure out their tolerance for risk and then do an asset allocation and do the investments. And people who say that, I think they've never actually dealt with human beings, understanding that investing is so little to do with all those numbers, but so much more to do with the people involved and really looking into someone's eyes in a meeting and seeing, what does he really mean? How can people get good at that skill?
Well, I think you've already hit the key point. It's got to be face to face because when we rely on technology, whether it's email or phone calls, it strips away part of the human factor. And so let's go back to email. Email is actually one of the worst ways to communicate because all you have are the words. And this may sound counterintuitive, but the words are the least relevant part of any communication.
Why is that?
Words are simply that. It's like, let's take the phrase, I love you. There are a million ways to say it and convey it, but when you write it down, you have no idea what the person actually meant. They could be sarcastic, it could be spiteful, it could be a true emotion, positive emotion. So your point about, especially with investing with money, when you're talking people's hopes and dreams, you need that FaceTime so you can listen to what they're saying and match it with how they're saying it and and the body language, which will be reinforcing their innermost desires and thoughts.
Wow. And of course, you have to be very attuned to that as a spy. We're talking with Chris Simmons, who is a decorated four-time war veteran. In fact, he's been responsible for destroying or crippling the careers of over 80 spies. So he's a huge hero in the United States. In fact, you've probably seen him on CNN or NBC or Fox. And we're very happy to have you, Chris, today on the Goldstein on Gelt show. Now, I really do want to dive more into this question about understanding visual and vocal cues that you get when you talk to people. But curiosity is just killing me. So can you tell me maybe one of the spy stories that, because I'm sure not only I would be interested, but I bet my listeners would too. Tell us how you applied some of these skills to catch a real bad guy.
Very briefly, I think a perfect example would be when we're going after Ana Montes, who was a Cuban penetration of the Defense Intelligence Agency. There arose a point where we thought she may have noticed the surveillance team. Now, we had, rather than potentially risk the entire investigation, I happened to work with Ana Montes separately from the investigation side that I was supporting, because she knew me as a typical analyst, and so she wasn't threatened by my presence. And shortly after we thought she detected the surveillance team, we had a meeting, and I made a point of sitting next to her and joking with her and interacting and physically touching her, as a friend would do, an acquaintance. And she reacted perfectly normal, as if she didn't have a care in the world. And that was enough to tell, so that when I left, I immediately called our investigators, told them whatever they thought they saw, they were wrong. She has no idea anything's about to happen.
Wow, that's amazing. And you could literally just feel that when you were with her.
Absolutely. If she had been tense at all, I would have felt it in her body. I would have heard it in her voice, and just having interacted with her for years, if she had deviated at all from the human nature aspect, her predictability, it would have been readily apparent.
All right. All right. So help me out, because as I mentioned before, I like to meet with clients before I help them with their investing. And I think I do what you just described, but I'm not sure I can put the words to it. So, for example, I'll talk to a couple and I'll say, well, listen, you were planning for retirement, but the market might crash. It might crash like it did in 2000, 2007, 2008, 2009. And I always ask them, what would you do in that case? And then I just listen not only to their answer, but to how they interact with each other and what they say. But help me, what are some of the things I'm probably looking at that I'm not even aware that I'm absorbing from them?
You have several components there, and I think it's an excellent scenario, because starting from the idea that the visual and the vocals are going to be probably 60% of what you're trying to convey, as well as what they're trying to convey back. So in watching them, how they face each other, whether let's say, for example, they're facing you and then they go to talk, if they actually shift away from you and are facing each other, and their posture is very open, palms up, arms open, that's very sincere gesture. But when they start closing in, and we've all seen exactly folded arms, the crossed legs, holding on to the chair, it's that's a defensive move. And so the less they're engaged about their plan, the less accurate information that you're going to receive from them, because they haven't worked it out between them. But you're going to see that in, again, their body language and how quickly they come to an agreement on the various issues.
All right, I'm gonna watch for that, because rather than just intuiting it, I'd like to find a rigorous way of doing this. And I understand that that's what you in fact teach people. If someone wants to learn more about reading body language so he can be a successful financial advisor or a spy catcher, what would you recommend?
I have my own website called Human Chess, and it discusses everything we've been addressing: human nature, the art of communication, And it really does apply to the financial world. I, in fact, work with a major U.S. bank, and I teach body language to tellers so that we can cut down the amount of fraud being committed against banks.
Wow, that is amazing. So tell me again, what's the website so people can learn to can follow you?
It's humanchess.co.
Humanchess.co. Okay, we will put a link to that at the show notes at today's show at goldsteinongelt.com. Chris Simmons, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. I hope to have you back soon.
Be my pleasure. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world. If you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.